Hello again, whiskey friends. Thanks for joining everybody for another whiskey review. And today we have a 2-for-1 special. I think it's one of the first times that I've really done two reviews in the same video. But given that I had two new hard truths to go over, I figured it was better to do it in one video. And if you happen to be at the store and you see both the new Harvest Rye and the Caramel Rye, Malted Rye Batch 2, maybe this video will let you know which one to choose based on the profile. Because I'll tell you what, spoiler alert, by the end of this, they both do really well in the scoring and they both score very, very similarly. So the flavor notes on this one and what you're looking for is really the distinguishing factor. So thank you for joining me today, whiskey friends. Let's kick off the show. All right, well, let's pull up the stats on both of these ryes here. Now, once again, this video is going to be all about hard truth, starting first with the Harvest Rye. Now, with this one, you can see the interesting label here, the art in the background. This is a collaboration with Mellencamp Whiskey, so that's essentially a painting of John Mellencamp. I believe his son did it, if I've got my story straight there. And the grains that went in this whiskey were harvested from Indiana and go to support Indiana farming and sustainable farming. Now, this is the first release of this Harvest Rye from fall 2023. I believe they're going to come out with one each season. Now, would it be interesting to see if it continues to be the same mash bill or if they'll continue to experiment there? I was trying to look up the exact proportions of this mash bill online. If you know them, let me know in the comments. I was having problems finding them and I didn't take a picture at the distillery, but I believe this one was about 70% rye, maybe 25% corn, and then the rest was malted barley. So you are talking about a rye with some corn content in it, if I got my details right. This ran me about $80, maybe $85. I got it at the distillery, but I have been seeing it in Northern Kentucky. It is 106 proof, and it is not age stated, but we could probably take an educated guess that if it was age stated, it would be around 3 years old. The other one we're going to go over is batch 2 of the Caramel Malt Rye. So this one here is one of the unique mash bills that Hard Truth puts together. If you have Hard Truth in your area, you might see 5 different variations of this thing between some of the bourbons or things that they source, their various rye whiskey mash bills. And then on top of that, they are coming out with some bourbons here in 2024. I just saw some bottle appearances recently hit my social medias, and I am excited to get my hands on some bottle and bond whiskeys. But for the caramel malt, this one I believe was like 60% rye, corn, and then the caramel malt, giving it the rest of the mash bill there. It runs a bit more expensive. It's $95 for a bottle of this. It's 116.6 proof. And once again, this isn't age stated, probably going to be about 3 years. Educated guess if it was. So let's go through the flavor notes here a little bit, because that's really what distinguishes these two pours if you are interested in getting either of these. In the gold whiskey nose glass, I've got the Harvest Rye, and in the Hello Again Whiskey Friend glass, the clear one, I've got the Caramel Malt. So going to the scores here, I'm going to go through the flavor profile in just a moment, but look at how similar these things ended up panning out, essentially getting a solid 8s across the board. Neither one of them quite has a knockout punch yet in terms of the flavor or the depth of the flavors, but it is offering a whole lot of things. I just couldn't help give it 8s as I was reviewing it. Now, the Harvest Rye is a bit cheaper than the Caramel Malt. Thus, It did get a little bit of extra value there, though I'd be more comfortable with both of these bottles if they were closer to $70 than the 80, 85, 95. But when you are buying a bottle of Hard Truth, just know that a portion of what you're doing is going towards helping out a new distillery on their path as they grow. So let's get to the flavor notes here. We're going to start with the Harvest Rye. Gave this one an 80 on flavor and an 80 on experience, and I'll explain why. Now, on the nose on this one, what really distinguishes this is that it does come across a bit more buttery, a bit more bready, and a bit more savory than what the caramel malt's going to do in just a second. Some of the flavors that I get, as an example, even off the nose, reminds me of an Italian restaurant bread basket of a restaurant here in Cincinnati. And the bread would essentially be covered with a glaze of sage butter. And that's kind of what I get mostly from the nose. It's very refreshing. There is some citrus there to balance it out, but you are talking about something to me that is more savory, herb, spice leaning than it is with the sweetness. Let's get into the taste. Mm. On the taste, the fruits really pick up and the sweetness does pick up. Despite what I said about the nose, those savory aspects are still there, but man, it is really fruit forward. I think it could be like a whole fruit bowl, even a little bit of a kiwi note there, mid palate with kind of like how bright it is. It's very, very interesting. Then on the finish, that's where you really feel that this is a rye. The rye spice emerges, and that's what hangs really on the back of the palate is that rye spice. So with the harvest rye, something savory, something with some herbs, citrus in terms of the fruits, though I am mentioning some other fruits such as the kiwi, and then you get that nice rye hit on the back end. Let's get into the caramel malt. Cheers, everybody. Thanks for joining me this far. See, the caramel malt, I think, is going to be more of the crowd pleaser for just general people looking into getting into hard truth. I think the harvest rye is a bit more intriguing than this, but these flavors are probably more accessible and just delicious by the description I'm about to give you. One of the things with this one too, and I'm going to sound awfully generic, but when it comes to the flavor notes, I do think Hard Truth nailed it. They have a little description there on the side of the bottle. It is custard, it is apples. It leans in that direction with that caramel. I mean those are essentially the flavors and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm always ordering creme brulees anytime I go to a fancy restaurant. And that's what this reminds me of quite a bit. Let's go into the taste. Mm. Yeah, mid palate, really those like baked apples, baked cinnamon apples, those really, really emerge. And for the most part, the flavors are consistent through and through. You're looking for like the baked apples, the inside of a apple pie, essentially put on top of a creme brulee, and then drizzled with some more caramel to boot. What's not to like about that? It is delicious, and I will say the batch two really elevated things compared to the batch one for me. The batch one to me showed promise. If you recall that review a couple months ago, batch two, man, lives up to that promise. And I am hoping that this trajectory continues with batch three, with batch four, as they get to blend with some older whiskeys in this. Once they get to 4-year rise, 5-year rise, I am really looking forward to what this particular pour has to offer in the future. I would even gush over a caramel malt single barrel. Mm. Somebody make that happen for me. All right, one more sip here, see if I got anything else. Nah, that's it, man. The baked apples on a creme brulee. Delicious. Absolutely delicious. Once again, though, $95 for that one. So you are paying a bit for a 3-year rye, supporting a brand like Hard Truth. So to summarize, then, overall, very similar again. They're only a point off. 81 for the Harvest Rye Fall 2023 edition, 80 for the Caramel Malt Batch 2. Mm, Really, really good. Now, if I saw both of these on the shelf at the same time, which one would I go with? Personally speaking, I am really intrigued to continue down this Harvest Rye series, but you also heard I was really intrigued by the caramel malt. So I'm probably going to buy them both. But if you saw them both and you were intrigued and you could only get one, just listen to the flavor notes I just described. Do you like a rye that is overly sweet, doesn't have a lot of rye spice? You're looking for apples, you're looking for that brightness, you got some creme brulee and some custard. That sounds pretty good. Go with the caramel malt. If you're looking for something a bit more challenging, a bit more depth, it's got some interesting savory notes. That's when I would go with the Harvest Rye. But honestly, I don't think you could miss on either of these, especially if you like exploring the rye category. So that concludes the double review for 2 releases from Hard Truth. Can't wait to come back with more Hard Truth once I get my hands on those bourbons. You will be the first to know when I am successful getting those. Well, let me know if you got any questions or comments in the comment section here. And if you've tried these before, be sure to let us know what you think as well. Add your voice to the conversation. We love it when we get the engagement and see everybody else engaging with each other. So thank you for joining me today, whiskey friends. I'll catch you on the next whiskey review. Goodbye, buddy.
Jeff, just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you say hello again. Oh, Jeffrey, you should just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you say hello again. Oh, Jeffrey, you should just be friends with me. But you have these